The rain had started before Megan even pulled into the driveway of her Aunt Claire's countryside home. It was a steady, unyielding downpour, the kind that made visibility poor and roads slick. By the time she parked, her nerves were already frayed from the harrowing drive along winding, unlit roads. She grabbed her bags and hurried up the gravel path, fumbling with the key Claire had mailed her. The house loomed before her, dark and imposing. Its Tudor-style architecture spoke of another era, with steep gables, leaded glass windows, and wooden beams that looked weathered but sturdy. The house had charm, certainly, but in the storm it appeared less like a quaint retreat and more like a shadowed sentinel watching her approach. Inside, the air was cool and faintly musty, a testament to its vacancy over the past months. Megan flicked on the lights, revealing a cozy yet antiquated interior. The living room featured a large stone fireplace, flanked by overstuffed armchairs, their fabric faded with time. The wooden floors gleamed faintly in the low light, polished yet scarred from decades of use. After setting her bags down in the guest room, she made herself tea and curled up on the couch, listening to the storm. She had come here to escape the noise, the crowds, and the relentless pace of her life in the city. She was a freelance writer, and the solitude of the countryside promised time to work on her long overdue novel. But as she stared into the crackling fireplace, she couldn't shake the feeling that something about the house felt off. The first night, Megan's unease took shape. The house, old as it was, seemed restless. The beams groaned, the windows rattled, and the sound of the storm outside was relentless. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, willing herself to relax. But then came the creaks, soft, deliberate, and too rhythmic to be the house settling. They started at one end of the hallway and moved closer. She froze, clutching the blanket tighter. Her breath hitched as she heard the faintest scuff of bare feet on wood. Then silence. She sat up slowly, reaching for the bedside lamp. The moment the light clicked on, she saw it. A shadow under her door, unnaturally still. Her throat tightened. Summoning courage, she croaked, "Who's there?" No response. Her hand trembled as she swung her legs over the side of the bed and approached the door. Heart pounding, she yanked it open, expecting, what exactly? An intruder? A ghost? But the hallway was empty. The only thing staring back at her was darkness. Megan left the light on that night and barely slept. The next morning, she awoke groggy, but determined to dismiss the incident as a product of her overactive imagination. She brewed coffee and set out to explore the house in daylight. The hallway, bathed in a soft morning light, appeared unremarkable until she noticed the floor. Mud. Her stomach churned as she saw the faint outline of footprints leading to her bedroom door. They were irregular, as though made by someone barefoot. Stranger still, there were no prints leading away. She cleaned the floor, telling herself there had to be a logical explanation. Maybe the storm had blown debris in through an open window. Maybe she had tracked it in herself without noticing. Still, the sight of the prints lingered in her mind all day. By evening, the storm had intensified. Megan's unease returned as she moved through the house, her footsteps echoing faintly. She found herself glancing over her shoulder, as though expecting to see someone standing behind her. She locked all the doors and windows before retreating to her room. The whispers began just after midnight, faint at first, like the rustling of leaves, but soon growing distinct. "Please, help! So cold!" She bolted upright, her pulse racing. The voice was faint, disembodied, yet undeniably real. She grabbed her phone, ready to call someone, anyone, but hesitated. What would she even say? The temperature in the room plummeted, and her breath came out in visible puffs. Then, the touch came. Cold, clammy fingers brushed against her arm. She jerked away, eyes wide with terror, but nothing was there. Still, the sensation lingered, as though something unseen lingered just inches away. She spent the rest of the night sitting in the corner of the room, knees pulled to her chest, waiting for dawn. The next day, Megan's resolve hardened. If something was haunting the house, she needed answers. She scoured every nook and cranny, searching for clues. It was in the attic that she found it, an old leather-bound journal buried under a pile of dusty blankets. The journal belonged to Eleanor Hawthorne, a woman who had lived in the house decades earlier. The entries were heartbreaking, detailing her descent into loneliness after the death of her husband. She wrote of sleepless nights, of yearning for his touch, of hearing his voice in the storm. The final entry was chilling. The storm has come. I think I can finally join him. But it's so cold. I can't feel anything anymore. That night, Megan felt prepared. She stayed awake waiting for the whispers. When they came, she didn't hide. "Eleanor," she called into the darkness. The room grew colder, and the whispers grew louder, overlapping and desperate. Then the touch returned, this time on her shoulder. Megan flinched but didn't pull away. "I'm here," she whispered. "You're not alone." The whispers softened, fading into a gentle hum. The oppressive chill lifted, and for the first time, the house felt still, peaceful. When Claire returned a week later, Megan debated whether to tell her what had happened. In the end, she decided against it. The journal, now stored in her bag, felt like a secret meant just for her. Months later, a package arrived at Megan's apartment. Inside was the journal and a note from Claire. "Found this while cleaning. Thought you might find it interesting." As Megan flipped through the pages, her breath caught. Beneath the final entry was new text, written in shaky, faded ink. "Thank you for bringing me back." The journal slipped from her hands, and for a long moment, she stared at it, her heart pounding. Outside, rain began to fall, the sound eerily reminiscent of that night in the countryside. And then she heard it. A whisper, soft but unmistakable. "I'm not alone anymore."